And welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 246. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvang. I'm joined now by a special guest, Grant McCagg of recruits.ca. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Blaine.
So this episode, we're going to be talking about prospects and the draft, and who better than to bring you onto the show to talk about these subjects.
Wow. Geez, thank you very much.
Well, you know, we do what we can here to keep our guests happy. There's not a lot of people willing to come on the show, right?
Okay. Well, I knew there was an angle.
Well, always. It's always an angle. We're those kinds of people. All right. So what we're going to cover basically for you guys listening at home, what we're going to talk about is we're going to cover the Canadiens prospects in hand already. We'll talk a little bit about their progress and, of course, the 2022 draft that's coming up, because it seems that the Canadiens are going to have a pretty good pick.
It's looking that way.
Even with St. Louis basically carrying this team back to what would be a bubble playoff team.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's it still looks like there's a pretty good chance they're going to be top five for sure. And
yeah,
there's at least five really good players, and so as long as you still end up with a top five pick, I don't think Hab fans should be too concerned about passing a couple teams here down the stretch.
So what would you say to the people at home who are saying that winning all these games, playing the way they're playing since St. Louis' arrival is hurting the team long term?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I believe that one of the most important things with young players and the development of young players is teaching them how to win. You have to have a winning culture and breed a winning culture, and certainly when you bring in a new coach, you don't want to keep losing. He doesn't want to lose, and you don't want to lose for him. You want to impress him. So I think it's all, you sacrifice a couple of spots in the draft for not hindering the development of your young players. It's more than a fair trade-off as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's nice to see Caulfield scoring more than one goal in 30 games, for instance.
Yeah, well, it's a little more exciting for the fans too, like 3 more months of losing 7-1, or draft a couple spots lower and win games 4-3. I'd rather have the second one.
And not to mention the fact that the team that finishes dead last hasn't won the draft lottery as often as those who haven't finished dead last.
Yeah, exactly. And it is one of those years where there aren't really guys that have been consensus number one, or even 1-2 all year, other than Wright, and he's disappointed. So I think it might be one of those years where the fifth overall pick is every bit as good as the top pick, but we'll see about that.
Now, speaking of that, Recruits is going to be coming out with its updated draft list. So could you walk us through a little bit of that, maybe a sneak peek, for instance, in that top five?
Well, I have had Slavkovsky first overall for the last few weeks, and he's maintained that spot. Watched his game today, and he was terrific. Probably the best performance I've seen from a draft eligible prospect this year. I'm gonna go through the highlights. It takes about 12 hours for the highlights to get on Instat before you can watch the shifts, and I'm going to break them down tomorrow and post highlights from his game. I'm also going to post some highlights from Liam Ogren who is the big riser, who's been the big riser. He's now third overall on my draft list, which is going to be a surprise for a lot of people that follow the draft, because when you click on elite prospects and you see all these independent scouting lists and stuff, he's ranges anywhere from 16 to 39 in the rankings. The highest is 16, and I've got him third. So that gives you an idea of just how up in the air this draft is right now. Where there's but that's happened in the last few years. In a few instances where Mason McCagg was not top 15 in some lists this time of year last year. And when I moved him up to second, I ended up with him second overall at the end of the draft. By the draft, a lot of people thought, wow, that can't be, because he hasn't been top 10 in Craigslist or whatever list they're looking at. Same thing with Heiskanen in his draft year. Probably March or April, I moved him into the top 5, and that at the time was deemed to be quite radical. People thought, wow, this guy, he's 25 on this list, he's 20, The beautiful thing about being connected to the NHL with NHL scouts and them being forthright with me is that you get a sense ahead of time. Even if I am seeing it, I still like it to be verified by the guys that are in the rinks every day, and getting the big paychecks, unlike me. And they alerted me to Heiskanen, and I studied him, and I saw that he was definitely top 5. Before these independent lists caught wind of it and studied it and studied him a little more and realized it. And it's ended up being a similar situation this year with both Ogren and Karamaki. That's another name that you don't see in a lot of top 5, top 10. I have them 3-4 now. Spent a lot of time watching the North American kids, and there's just none of them justify being in the top 5 beyond Shane Ray. And the more I studied these kids in Europe, the more I've concluded and had it verified from NHL scouts that these 2 kids are the late risers that are definite top 5 picks today. We'll see by the draft time, but right now I think a lot of NHL clubs would pick both those guys top 5. Logan has 33 goals in 30 Swedish junior games. I haven't done all the studying on it yet, but that's incredible. Like you look at Raymond and a few others that they played mostly in the SHL in their draft year, so you can't judge it real fairly. But I don't know of any draft eligible prospect 17 years of age that scored more than a goal a game at the junior level in Sweden. If it's happened, it was rare. I haven't found that yet, but that just goes to show you just his goal scoring potential. But this is a kid that he's 6 foot, workout machine. Heard nothing but good things about how hard he works off the ice. Strong kid. Bit of maybe only 6 feet, but he's strong enough to play a power game and to get to the net using his strength. Very good speed, very good shot, goal scorer and a playmaker. Competes pretty well too. Like he's got some jam. So there's nothing really not to like about his game. So he's moved up into the 3rd spot in my rankings. Kimmel dropped down a bit. He still hasn't, since he came back from injury, just hasn't been consistent. He's moved down to 5 on the rankings. Karamaki, I had a scout tell me today, like, he's broken records. I didn't think that was the case, but I looked into it. The last 17-year-old Swede to score at a better goal per game pace, and the only one was Peter Forsberg in the 80s. So
is that's good.
That's not bad either, right? So I mean, I'm a little surprised that guys haven't come around on these two a little quicker. Certainly the NHL scouts have, I have, and when I release the list tomorrow officially, it's already up on the site. If you go there, you can see the rankings. My top 100 picks. I've got the rankings up there for subscribers, and I updated the top 10 on the homepage for free, so people can go and see it and see what my top 10 is. And then if you don't have a subscription, get one.
Yeah.
And you can see my top 100, which will only be, I'm only going to expand that as I go along. I've done that all year. I started with the top 30, then it went top 40, 50, and it's up to about 99 or 100 now. And I'm gonna, I'll end up with 150 by the draft.
Now, you've got quite a few Europeans in that top 10. There's one that I wanted to point out. I wanted to hear a little bit more about him, and that's Nemich, the right-hand defenseman.
Mm-hmm. I was pretty high on him early on, actually mid-season. I thought maybe he was a top 5 guy, and other guys have jumped up. Fellas that I trust quite a bit that are crossover scouts that have been over there recently pointed out some issues with his pivoting. He's 6 foot, so that's considered an undersized defense. Like that's the average is 6'1" to 6'2" on an NHL defenseman. If you're under, if you're 6 foot or under, they want you to be dynamic. I don't know that he's that, but certainly he's a very good defenseman. I mean, he's played for his national team since he was 16. Mind you, that's Slovakia, and their depth isn't great, so you have to take that into consideration too. But what has come into question is just how much offense he has and just how good a skater he is. More so with his pivoting than anything. But as you know, for defensemen, being able to pivot is so important at the NHL level, because they can speed of some of those guys, they can get by in a hurry, and it doesn't matter how quick you are after that. If a guy gets a step on you, you're probably toast. So those two things have resulted in him dropping a bit. In my rankings, I've got him 9th now. A lot of NHL guys don't even have him in the top 10. I still, there's still some things I like quite a bit. Hopefully he goes to the World Championships here. The problem with Slovakia now is that they're not in the under 18s. They drop down. So we won't be able to see Slavkovsky or Nemich at the under 18s. Now, hopefully, I'm pretty sure Slavkovsky will be there, because he was like the star of their Olympic team. So
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't. And certainly he's got the size, But Nemich, I'm hoping, they had him at the Olympics too. He didn't play a lot, but hopefully he gets to go to the World Championships and play a fair bit. I've been watching him a bit in the playoffs here, and he's getting some points. I mean, he's a fine prospect, but for the Habs in the top 5, I might have to say that you pass on that. And I mean, you look at is he going to be better than Mayu? Probably not. Is he going to be better than Barron? Maybe, maybe not. So, do you take a top 5 pick on a guy that may be your 3rd right defenseman? I don't know. I don't think so. I think I think, well, first of all, Slavkovsky, I think is the ideal fit for Suzuki and Caulfield. That to me would be the perfect pick for the Canadians if they end up, first or second. And his size, what he can do along the boards, he can be he's Anderson with vision, passing skills, and more size
And a left shot.
Yeah. And probably more, he's probably going to score more goals too, because Anderson, you never know where the puck's going, right? Love the kid, love, and all that, but he's not an accurate sniper,
Now, looking at the Canadians draft pick, their first pick this year, if it falls, say, fourth, if they lose out on the lottery and move back a spot, do you feel that Slavkovsky, sorry, having a hard time talking.
Slav, we call him Slav.
Do you feel he'd be available at 4?
No, I don't feel that. I feel that now the NHL guys are, they agree with me that he's top 2, Pick your poison. Do you want Wright or do you want Slavkovsky? I think that's at this point anyway. And certainly after today's game, I don't know how you couldn't pick him 2 if Wright goes 1. And personally, I'd pick him 1. Wright's just bothered me. I've seen too many. I've watched 40 of his games, probably. 35 of them, he's dogged it. Hasn't battled hard. Doesn't back check hard. Doesn't try to win battles. Gets knocked down a lot. He can pile up points, and sees the ice well, and skates well, and all that stuff. But he's going to have to. He's going to have a big wake up when he hits the NHL. At this point, I'm just. I need to see it in the playoffs. I need to see him compete in the playoffs and help Kingston win some tough road games. I haven't seen that this year. He shows up in Hamilton with Jacky and McTavish out there against him, and he's invisible. That's not a first overall pick in my mind. That if you can't do it, at the junior level, are you going to do it against the best players in the world? Maybe, but I'm a little concerned that he's maybe one of those guys that's not really. It's going to take him a few years to help you win playoff games, because he's going to have to learn to compete a lot harder. So that's a question mark for me. It reminds me a bit of what I saw from Roland Patrick in his draft year.
Okay.
He was so good, and everyone's consensus number 1. The 6'1" center that had 100 points when he was 16, the golden boy. Didn't have a particularly good draft year. Didn't compete hard. It was lazy. He skates back like Desharnais used to. Did you remember Desharnais on the back check?
He's still trying to back check to this day.
Yes. And I see a lot of shifts. I'm going to put a piece together at some point down the stretch here, just with the right back check. Okay. And it's like slow motion. He goes like that. And it
It's
just
like
crazy.
that's my back check.
Yeah. It's the beer league. It's called the beer league back check. And,
now, based on that, do you feel like he's going to be a slider? Maybe down to 3, 4?
Well, it depends on these other guys, Karamaki comes back. He's got mono right now. So we got to hope that he gets back for some of the playoffs and definitely for the U18s, But I mean, if a couple of guys light it up at the U18s, Slavkovsky goes to the World Championships and does what he did in the Olympics, he's definitely going number 1. But, there's no other guy that I think is in the top five that's a centerman. Some will argue Cooley, and I think he's outside of the top five. The last centerman that was 5'10", taken in the top five, 5'10" or shorter, might have to go back to Marcel Dion. Like it's a rare, Marco Rossi was a better junior in his draft year than Cooley, and he went ninth. Way more competitive, way more consistent, way better defensively, stronger, kind of same height. So, you see these independent lists with Cooley in the top two, and I can't see it. But he's the only other guy I think that would be in the discussion. So there are some teams that like him. I don't see him as I'd rather take one of these European wingers than Cooley at 4 or 5 for sure.
Now, what do you think? What have you been hearing about the Russian factor in this draft? Because with Russia doing what they have done on the political side, attacking the Ukraine, they've been given all kinds of sanctions by the hockey community. How much of an impact is that going to be on teams selecting Russian-based players?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've asked that, and give you the same answer as NHL scouts. It's like, I don't know. I really don't. I think it's going to hurt them. Are they even coming over? Right? Like, the world's changed. We're not cooperating with Russia right now, and it's going to be a long time before we are, I do believe. This one's going to take some time to get over. So it's a good question. Like they, may buckle down on things. Well, you're not getting our players because there's already the tit for tat sanctions and, exports and imports that's going on and all that. So, is it going to, the import and export of hockey players going to be next on the list? Like it could be, and maybe they're going to be less inclined to come over too, right? All the propaganda that they're fed about the West and stuff, who knows what they're, they may say, oh, that the evil empire, I can't go play over in North America. I don't know what these kids are thinking. So, and then on top of it, Miroshnichenko, I noticed that you just called them the Russians. You didn't try to pronounce that name, but
nope.
Yeah, with the cancer, and so it's even more up in the air with him. Like I know guys that still, one scout that still has him third on his draft list, but he wouldn't pick him. He knows that they wouldn't pick him third. He thinks he's the third best prospect. That's how he has him ranked, but with a red flag beside it or whatever. Say,
yeah, with a hammer and sickle on it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Might end up like Putin upside.
Yeah. Well, 7
goals
goals a game upside.
11 goals a game or whatever. Not bad, but
Yeah, that's okay.
Sketchy goaltending. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Leafs.
Yeah. But there's also interesting thing about him. Miro, as I like to call him, is that he there are strong whispers that he's the next Grigorenko, and that don't believe his birth certificate. He's not 17 or 18. He's
19 or 20.
Grow a full beard if you did, if you knew it wouldn't hurt, people make it more suspicious even than it already is. But he's from a town that's like almost on the North Korean border, way over in southeast Russia, where middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And they're are a lot of people that are saying that this kid is not. It's not his draft year. It was probably a couple of years ago. So, if that ends up being the case too, well, no wonder he's been so good. So yeah, he's got the 3 strikes right now. So you'd have to have big cojones to use a top 10 pick on him this year. I think, even though he may be one of the 3 best, most skilled players in this draft class.
Now, this takes me to the Canadiens' approach to the draft. I wanted to get your view on what you feel Hughes's draft strategy could be going into his first draft. We saw Bergevin's method with Timmins, where they tried to get as many possible picks so that they could kind of flood themselves with as many prospects as they can, hoping it really hits. What do you think Hughes is going to do in this draft now that he has 14 picks?
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully he's got a different philosophy in that he won't be averse to moving up, because they made so many picks in the last 4 years, and they're going to have another 14 this year, and they have another 10 next year at this point, which will probably be 14 by draft day, because you'll see Mike Hoffman probably traded, next draft deadline. Petrie, I could see Petrie going before the draft this year, perhaps, or next year before the trade deadline, one of the two. So you only have 50 contracts, right? So how many of these guys ultimately are going to end up getting signed? There's some really good prospects that got to be signed. I mean, right now there's players that I don't think they might want to sign. I don't think they can sign any of these college free agents that you could possibly pick, because they're not going to have the contracts, because they got to give them to guys that have been drafted. So I mean, it's a pleasant problem to have. It's better than what it was before, when they were signing guys from the ECHL to NHL contracts or whatever. They played in once they played in BLB there, they got a contract because Joel coached them once or whatever. Things were a little thin in the past, but that's not going to be the case. So 2 things I think can happen here. He'll package some of his top 90 picks. I think, what has he got now? 6.
He's got 14 over the next. He's got 14 over the next 3 seasons.
But this draft, I think he's got
6.
3 second or 3 third rounders.
Yeah.
2 firsts and
2 seconds.
It'd probably be 2 seconds.
Yeah.
With the Kulak deal.
Yes. Yeah, because unless Edmonton makes the final, they get their second. So
that'd be 6, right?
Yeah.
Well, package the even if they want to trade up in the first, let's say their second pick is at 25, and there's somebody at on the board at 20 that they've got ranked top 12 or something like that. Say, maybe it's the right defenseman or something. Let's trade one of our seconds and a third to move up from 25 to 20, or I mean, that's a little steep, but at least they have it though. They have that capital, and if it's really someone they believe in, and they're 26 and they want to move to 20, you throw in the second rounder. You still got 4, more picks in the top 30. So, or in the top 3 rounds. So, I think that's a possibility. Or move up to have a third pick in the first round. That's also a possibility. They've got good capital, let's say it's the 30th pick, and they say, well, wow, there's Jack Hughes. I want my son. Here's the 2. Here's our 2 second round. The 36th and the 50th pick to move up to 30 to get, Jack Hughes. I mean, I doubt very much that he's gonna pick his own son, because just puts so much pressure on both, you know.
Yeah.
If he fails, you know, it's just you won't hear the end of it, right? Especially in Montreal, you know, especially if they did it to pass over, you know what, Quebec league.
I can't see any pressure being put onto anyone in Montreal.
Yeah. But you know, imagine if he, you know, there was the let's say Gaucher was still on the board.
Yeah.
Well, they're expecting him to go 20th because he's on, you know, Craig Button's list. He's at 20 or something, and it's the 29th pick, and he moves up, and he doesn't take Gaucher, and he takes his son, and it doesn't turn out. No, you never hear the end of it. You know, last year Philadelphia, they really liked really Gregg. You know, might have even taken him if Mark Gregg wasn't their chief scout out west. You know, his dad.
Yeah.
He just, no, we can't do it. You know, you just can't. It's unfair to the kid.
Just the thought that it would look like some form of nepotism.
Well, of course, you know. So I doubt that he would do that. I hope he doesn't do it. Even though I don't, you know, Jack Hughes is an okay player and all that stuff. But then the other thing that I think that he might do is trade some. This is something Bergevin used to do, is just trade a pick for a pick next year. You know,
kind of punt that one down the road.
Yeah. You know, you're gonna pick 50th, and I mean Bergevin did that a couple of times too. You know, did it with a Tampa pick last year or whatever, right? Next year's stronger draft year, so gives you an extra year to sign people. Get the, you know, you only got those 50 contracts, right? Gives you an extra year to look at guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't trade to move up, that he does something like that, where he'll you know, swap a couple of picks this year for later year, maybe even 2 years down the road.
Now, there's been a lot of talk that next year's draft is stronger than this year's. So what is the expectation of the prospects at the second half of the first round? Are they looked at as number 4 or 5 D-man and third line players?
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of drafts that, you know, get guys that are, you know, 4 or 5 D-men late in the first round, or good third line centers or whatever, you know, the case may be. But that's certainly the case this year. It's not a real deep defense group. I think, you know, 6 to 8 defensemen go in the first round, maybe. I don't see more than 8 going this year. So that's not, you know, some years it's 10, 12 or more. Don't think that that's going to happen this year. So you're getting a defenseman at the end of the first. You're looking at a 4 or 5 likely, you know, which is still, you know, 15 to 18 minute a game defenseman is pretty valuable commodity, you know.
Now, we can move over to the Canadiens prospect pool. You've mentioned a few times the NCAA players, the number of contracts. I think the Canadiens have 3 left now after signing Harris. That brings up the thought of maybe someone like Stapley, who's playing for Denver and is compared favorably to Evans. What are the odds that he gets signed?
I hope so. Talked to an NHL scout who's a couple of months back, and he says, you know, I'd sign it. You know, another NHL team will do it for sure. You know, you don't pass on a kid with that much skill if you have a chance to sign him. You know, he's in your system. Yeah, I would definitely sign the kid. You know, there's a need for a second line center, and he might have that potential. I mean, a lot would have to go right, but so I mean, he's, you know, 7th round draft pick. It wasn't a huge, you know, amount of capital spent there. So yeah, I would hope that they're going to sign him. I think because there's so few contracts, maybe they don't sign Struble right now. I thought maybe they do a double signing with Harris and Struble, you know, and
Yeah.
seeing that didn't happen, I guess maybe they're not going to sign Struble at this time. Certainly,
think
he's ready
maybe-
physically.
Could be his injury history causing him to kind of slide a little bit on his progression, cause that?
Yeah, maybe. He hasn't played a heck of a lot. He's still learning. Like he's played 73 games or something like that in college, you know. For a lot of college players, that's 2 years, or less than 2 years, a full years. We haven't had that, right? With COVID and with his injuries and everything the last 2 years. But the thing then too is you wait another year, then he's got the option of not sign with you if, you know, when the time comes. So you often want to, especially guys picked up the top 2 rounds, you often want to get them. You want to sign them by the end of their junior year, unless you don't plan on signing. So maybe they don't plan on signing, or say, well, let's give them 1 more year. You know, we're on the bubble with signing this kid. We don't have many contracts, so we've got a lot of left defensemen. You know, Jack maybe he's a better version of him, maybe a more consistent version. So, you know, maybe they're looking at it that way where, okay, we've got other, you know, Fairbrother we're happy with. Jack brings the same dimensions, but he's bigger, more consistent. So perhaps he doesn't get signed. But that's a good thing if he doesn't. You know, it just means that other players, other drafted players, other signed players develop more. There's a lot of depth there now. So there's going to be good, you know, Olsen's another one. I don't see him getting signed, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him because he's been having a lot of injury issues as well.
Yeah. And he just never learned to play hard, you know. All the skill in the world, looks great in practice, you know. Trevor interviewed he always does this, he interviews other players on teams and asks them who's the most skilled guy on your team and stuff. You know, they play on under 18 teams and stuff. And they all said Olsen at the time. 6'2", could skate, you know, all that stuff, stick handle. But he just never learned to play hard. Not yet anyway. I mean, there's still time for him to figure it out, become a good professional player in Sweden, but I don't know that, I don't think he's going to get signed. And, you know, in part though, it's because there's other, you know, there's prospects that are better than him in the system now that were drafted later. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Now, Hughes and Gorton have both gone on to say that they want a team that plays fast, thinks the game fast, and provide a certain level of skill. So that kind of, it could push a few of these prospects out, but one that I think really jumps up the charts based on that and the way he's played is Jonathan Drouin out of
Sherbrooke?
Yeah, Sherbrooke, yes, because he just got traded last year from St. John.
Yeah.
So he's leading the queue in points. He's playing at a much higher level than he has in the past. He's not signed yet. They have another year after this before they have to, but do you feel like they'll be maybe pressured a little bit because he is a local Quebec boy and he's making good?
Well, I think they may wait till training camp. You see if, you know, he comes close to making the team, then sign him. You think, well, we can start the season with him. You know, then they'll definitely sign him. They don't have to sign him, right, till next year. I think with the lack of contracts, I don't know that it's got to be a priority. You know, And certainly don't do it because you might get shit from press or a few fans or whatever. That's not a good reason to do something, especially when you got so few contracts. If it means you sign him instead of Stapley or something like that, when you don't have to, that doesn't make sense to me. If it comes down to, well, we're going to lose this kid, we might end up playing the NHL so that we can appease fans. That's not good hockey business as far as I'm concerned.
On the other side of that spectrum of taking shit from the fans, one player that that could cause a little bit of a PR nightmare is the signing of Logan Mayu. Now they've only got they have until next year to sign him, but if they want to have him have a full camp and maybe he has a good showing, would they even attempt to suffer those slings and arrows?
Sign him early, you mean?
Sign him this summer, yeah.
Well, they don't have to. They definitely don't think, I definitely don't think they, and he's not gonna, he's gonna understand why. He's played what? 10 junior games?
10, 11 junior games, yeah.
So, and I mean, the last few games he played, he came out, jumped out of the cannon there, but last few games weren't as good as the first few. He's still got a lot to learn, He's certainly not going to play in the NHL next year. I know that much. You got to get him games, and no, that one makes no sense. There's certainly not going to be pressure to sign him.
No,
for next year. You're not going to get shit if they don't sign him until next year. So, no, that one for sure. You wait till the last minute. You wait till 1:59. The night of the deadline to sign him, and don't even, I wouldn't even release it to the press. I just let it kind of slide on it. I don't think you want to make a big spectacle of it.
No,
this is going to be. I think all of this has to be treated, with the utmost respect for what's gone on since he was picked.
Now, there's some fans that feel like the Canadians should renounce that pick. I personally do not believe that's ever going to happen. Do you have any inkling as to if that could?
You have no inkling, no.
Do you think they would?
I never heard anyone speculate it in NHL circles. Time heals wounds, as they say, I guess. And, another year from now, especially if he has a good year next year, and he's looking like a, future top pairing great defenseman. I don't, there'd be more fans at that point upset with him being renounced than being signed. So, the feedback I get now is the majority of people, I think I asked a poll question about, you forgive him, and Brian did, a big poll on it too. And people think, that it's something that you have to give the kid another chance, as long as he keeps his nose clean and doesn't do anything, anything untoward between now and the date of signing next year. No, you keep him. I mean, he's an asset. No, guaranteed another team would take him from you if it comes down to that you don't want him in the organization. You still sign him and you trade him. Then you don't renounce the pick and lose that asset.
Now, moving on from that, he's a defenseman. The last topic I wanted to cover is the Canadians' future defense. And it looks like basically it has arrived. Romanov, Goulie's on his way. Mayu is one of those young players. Barron has now arrived thanks to a trade. Harris is just signed. So there's a glut of young defensemen. Do you feel that this is the turning point into modernizing the defense, as Hughes has mentioned he wants?
Not going to be 6 Bergeverans on the blue line. Is that?
No
That'd be
longer
fair to
6
say.
Bergevins, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I thought that all along, projected it as this 22, 23 is the year where, you see the changeover where it's pronounced, I know Ryan's been bringing up the fact he thinks, the defense will be too young next year. And I did a little digging because I recalled the last time the Habs won the cup that they had a pretty young defense.
I think the oldest one on the defense that year was 27.
Well, Ramage was the oldest guy, but he got injured and he wasn't regular in the playoffs. But yeah, the top 6 or 7 scorers on defense, the oldest guy was Daniel at 27. And the next oldest was Olby at 24.
Yeah.
Everyone else was 23 and 22. So, I mean, Gooley's, doesn't matter what his age is, he's going to help the defense. He's better than Kulak at 27. He'll be better next year than Kulak. He'll bring more dimension. I like Edmondson. I love that he'll be around and he'll be there to mentor these guys. Romanov, I think he'll reach another level offensively. We're always seeing in the second half here where it seems like he's gaining offensive confidence by the week. And I think he'll be a 30-plus point guy by next year. Barron looked pretty good. Not bad. Certainly he's got the skating ability to play at the NHL level. So I think he'll probably slide in next year. And we'll see how Harris looks here. It's funny, I biggest advocate opponent for him getting signed, and I missed it. When did he sign?
Saturday.
Was Saturday? Okay. I was busy with a lot of stuff on Saturday, and I never actually did see a tweet that the announcement. Today was the first day that I knew that he had signed, when they showed him on the beach there doing push-ups and stuff. And okay, they did sign Harris. And it's weird that I never saw a tweet in 2 days that verified that he'd been signed. I got distracted and busy with other stuff because I'm usually on Twitter all the time. But yeah, it's. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Norlinder. Maybe he comes in and wins a spot next year. Jack Kai is not far away. I don't think he is. He really looks good this year, just as a third pairing kind of defenseman. That he's not far away. And same with Fairbrother. I unfortunately got injured this year. He keeps getting injured too, and that's the only thing that. If he didn't get injured this year, I think that he might have started next season on the blue line. So he's not far away either. It's definitely the transition is in full force in 22, 23, I think.
Yeah, and there's Schooneman, who's one of St. Louis' favorites now, and
I like Schooneman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not perfect or anything, but I like his poise and skating. Puck. He's good with the puck. He makes some really skillful plays. He's been making some smart, skilled little passes and plays, and pretty poised. Not making a lot of mistakes. Getting caught out position here and there, but I mean, every young defenseman that happens with. He's not young, but green. Every green defenseman that being an NHL rookie, but I can see him having he's in the mix next year for sure too. And Weidman hasn't been horrible, but I don't see him. I don't think he's in the future. Savard, last 20 games, it's been fine. Like if you're, you play him in a third pairing, I think they're overplaying him because they have no choice. Playing him in a, top 2-3 minutes role, but he hasn't been bad in that. But ideally, third pairing.
Yeah, and you don't want to get rid of him either, because if you're
No.
going this young, you need some kind of
Oh
veteran
yeah.
help.
Well, he's grown on me. He struggled a lot at the start, and in part because he's playing out of because of injuries. They played him too high up in the lineup. He should be playing 20 minutes plus a game.
No.
But he can be a 15, 18-minute penalty killer, that kind of role, mentor. The veteran on the squad, and I think Petrie. I hope he's gone.
Yeah.
I think at the draft, hopefully something can get worked out, and you go with the you go with that group.
Now, just looking at the blue line that they have put together now and what we're projecting out, I'm just wondering, who was it that signed all these guys and who drafted them, with the exception of Barron?
I'm going to have to go get my. I have to plug in my computer. I'm going to lose you here.
Well, we're pretty much done. So
Okay,
what do we?
it could just go off in like 2 seconds.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was pretty much at the end.
It would take me a half a minute to get it.
And he's out. He'll come back in a moment. To answer the question, I was being a little facetious. Bergevin did put together the majority of that, along with Timmins. Now, they did have a lot of issues. They did have their downsides, but thankfully they looked ahead and they were able to pick players that fit a more modern style. So at the very least, there is a decent foundation for this current management team to build upon, to give the fans a more modern approach to the NHL game. As Grant had mentioned, the 6 Bergevins on the blue line, I think the days of that are pretty much done. Obviously, some of those types are going to be needed for the playoffs, but you can get guys like that who are more mobile, people like Gooley, for instance. So I want to thank Grant for coming on the show. If you want to check out the latest draft rankings that he has out, you go to recruits.ca, and please definitely subscribe. You'll get amazing draft coverage, and you will get all kinds of Habs coverage as well, including work for myself. I do freelance there from time to time, and I do use his draft rankings to help me in building a larger picture. Clearly, I use others as well, but his is one of the few that I really, really use. So thank you for listening. And remember, if you were talking about it, so are we.